How many of you have heard of our company? Good, all right. How many of you played our games? Oh, that sucks. Play more, play more. I hated mobile games. I grew up in the video game industry, and to me, the mobile games business was about the worst place possible to make any money at all. It was lowest common denominator software that had to be ported to the largest number of handsets through a whole host of carriers in a whole bunch of different languages, you failed to have a direct relationship with the customer, and what's more, for the privilege, the carriers would take 60 or 70% of your revenue and you would get a small licensing fee. The largest companies in the market did $60 to $70 million in revenue when we started the company and had 800 to 1,000 employees. Was not an interesting space to be in at all. That changed for me when I got my first iPhone. I was standing in a line in Santa Monica along with thousands of other gadget geeks. And it's a prerequisite in the video game business to be a gadget geek. You just sort of have to be. And I was, if you're familiar with Santa Monica, which is where I was living at the time, the Apple store is on 3rd Street Promenade. And the line, this was in July, I guess, when the first iPhone was released. The line went out to Wilshire, which is about 3/4 of a block. Went down Wilshire to Ocean Avenue. Went along Ocean Avenue for at least one more block. And I was standing there in the on the Wilshire side. I got there real early. I got there like 5 hours before they opened. And I was like number, I don't know, 7,000 in the line or something. I finally got my phone, and I took it home. And after sort of a fairly kind of clunky experience with the, with the keyboard, after about a day or so, I noticed something really different. I noticed that I wasn't using my phone really for making telephone calls. That had something to do with AT&T, but really, I was using my phone to browse the web and listen to music and, check my stocks and, look at YouTube. My behavior patterns had changed. This sort of device had this unique blend of usability and capability that was changing my own usage patterns. Well, usage is time. Games are entertainment. Entertainment is a trade for time. Whenever a device or an event happens that changes, how much time you spend with something, there's an opportunity to radically reshape the landscape around it. Certainly in the entertainment space and the game space. But at that time, there was really no opportunity to target the device. In March of 2008, while I was still at Electronic Arts, I was watching the live stream of the Apple SDK announcement and the App Store announcement. And at that moment, for me, a light went off in my head that said, you know what, I should leave my cushy job at Electronic Arts running these studios, and I should go start a company focused on building games and applications for this device. I picked up the phone, I called my friend Bob Stevenson, who became my founding partner at ngmoco. April 20th, I told Electronic Arts I was leaving. June 26th, we founded the company. July 31st, or June 26th, ngmoco was born. And July 31st, we raised our first round of funding from Kleiner Perkins and the iFund. Now, ngmoco, not ngmoco, or I don't know, no good booger, depending on, if you're mixing Asian with Spanish. ngmoco stands for Next Generation Mobile Company. And the name really was just NewCo. I mean, that was our NewCo. When we started the company, it was the only Google search that we did that didn't come up with any results. And so we kind of figured it was sort of meant something to us, and we figured that the investors would tell us to change it at some point, but it ended up being the name that we stuck with. And I've learned from that you know, your name and your brand, certainly in the entertainment space and the technology space, tends to be defined by the products that you that you make. Our founding vision, and this is relevant, this is the company's very first logo from our first presentation deck to Kleiner. And underneath there, in Google Translator Japanese, it says Future Entertainment Company, which our now Japanese owners find very funny, because it literally says Future Entertainment Company. That was sort of the founding vision for the company. We were a little shy. We thought it'd be a bit cocky to put under the bottom of our logo in English, so we disguised it in Japanese. We believed that, and still believe, that mobile and mobile operating systems were the future platforms for entertainment, and that games are the future of entertainment. So our goal really was to build this future entertainment company, and that's been a thread throughout everything that we've tried to do. Now, along the way, we have had ups and we've had downs, and we've learned a lot. And as Tim mentioned, as a first-time CEO, my sort of number one job was to learn and to develop and to evolve. And so I wanted to share with you kind of 7 things that I've learned over the course of of the last 2.5 years. Some of the observations that I've had about raising money, some of the wisdom that people have kind of shared with us. So hopefully that will be useful for you. And if not, I'm sorry I wasted your time. The first I want to share with you is the wisdom of George. Now, George is George Stevenson, which is my founding partner Bob's father. And George lives in Hong Kong. He's a successful serial entrepreneur in the electronics business, super old school, has a manufacturing plant that makes probably the remote controls that you have in your home that Sony doesn't actually make themselves. And to sort of picture George, he's this huge, Scottish, opinionated, kind of 68-year-old guy. He's this huge, giant man who eats babies. And he has these opinions. And one opinion that he has is that startups are hard. Why would you do that? You're stupid. Well, startups are hard. They're really hard. It takes the same energy to create a new company in a small macro than it does to create a new company in a big macro. So, if you're going to start a company, start it in a big macro. And make sure, Neil, you wee bastard. He said, don't be a pussy. Swing for the fences, do something big, and when you do, make sure that you burn your fucking boats. You commit yourself completely to that. Because if you don't commit yourself completely to that, that's not going to happen. That's not the way the universe works. You'll be fucked. Don't be a pussy. Burn your boats. Now, a much more sedate advisor is Mike Maples Jr., who, how many of you heard Mike talk? Okay, Mike is one of the most wonderful people in the world. And we would not have been able to start ngmoco. And I get verklempt when I talk about investors sometimes, which sounds really arse-kissy. but it's true. We would not have been able to start ngmoco really without Mike. Mike was introduced to us by Kevin Rose, who was introduced to us by a friend. Kevin became an advisor in our company, and we met with Mike at the Slow Club in Potrero Hill on a Saturday, when our company was just Bob and I in a PowerPoint presentation and a video that Bob had made over the weekend that sort of demonstrated kind of what we were trying to accomplish. Mike, says something similar to George. Don't be a pussy, build something huge. He calls it a thunder lizard, which I'm sure many of you have read about or heard about. And his basic idea is, he wants to invest in companies that have the opportunity to be thunder lizards, right? Sort of inspired by Godzilla, these sort of atomic eggs, or eggs that have been contaminated with nuclear radiation, in Japan. A little, monster hatches from it, holds its breath, swims under the ocean while growing, eating fish along the way, only to emerge in New York City and crush and destroy it. I think New York City is supposed to be competitors or the market or something like that. But his thought is, invest in companies that have the potential to be really disruptive, to be really big, and that can make a big change in a big, either existing macro or a new macro. And so, the question that I think you kind of have to ask yourself is if George is right, and it takes the same energy to create a new company in a big macro than it does to create a new company in a small macro, what would you rather be? Would you rather be the thunder lizard, or would you rather be the little wee lizard? Because at the end of the day, all of you who are entrepreneurs are going to put probably exactly the same amount of energy as somebody who had a $20 million outcome, a $100 million outcome, a $500 million outcome, a $1 billion outcome. You're gonna mortgage your house. You're going to, not spend time with your family. You're going to work around the clock. You're going to not take holidays. You're going to ask your employees not to work for any money. We didn't actually have to do that. That's pretty daunting and awesome. But if you're going to invest that amount of energy, invest it in something that can be really, really big. So that's sort of the first thought. The second is the importance of core beliefs. So core beliefs are the things that you sort of always go back to at the end of the day to help you think through things. And in the heat of sort of the business battle, it can get really, really confusing. You have a lot of competing priorities, a lot of competing opinions, tons of inputs from lots of different places. Board members, investors, advisors, employees, customers, the left side of your brain, your right side of your brain, your business partner, your management team. And in those moments, it can become exceptionally confusing. Our core beliefs helped us make decisions that enabled us to stay true to our company and what we were trying to accomplish. And they saved our company many, many times. It stopped us from building Facebook applications. And I think if we had built Facebook applications, we might have been the number 4 or the number 5 Facebook company, and that would have been a very, very different proposition from a shareholder value standpoint than the company that we created. Our core beliefs were these devices will be in the pockets of billions of people, be owned by billions of people. The mobile operating systems will move from phones to tablets and to televisions over time, will become ubiquitous. That at the core, there was this new math, that usability and capability could drive new usage patterns, and if we became expert at managing and manipulating those usage patterns, we'd be able to build a big business.